You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Today, I am talking to Mr. Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups down in New Zealand. I think this might have been the first New Zealander I've had on the podcast, and if that's not true, I feel very, very bad because that means I've forgotten. But hey, we're over 400 episodes now, and my brain is pretty small, so, so it goes. I'm sure this sounds a little different because I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, in the middle of the night, in the middle of a parking lot, recording this because I'm a dum-dum and forgot to record the intro before I left. But speaking of Nashville, thank you to everybody who showed up to the pizza party. I know I talked about it a lot the last couple weeks. Thank you to everybody who showed up to that. We demolished more pizza than I'm probably prepared to admit on this podcast. It was really, really cool. Y'all met my family, not just my kids and my wife, but my mom and dad, my sister, brother-in-law, and there's people who are really excited behind me. That's what happens when you record in public. And you probably hear cicadas and stuff too. Anyway, thank you to everybody who showed up for that. That was really, really cool. Me and Glenn had an amazing conversation on this episode. It's just the full-blown music nerdery the whole time. The Patreon is no different, and really, 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 truly, I had a great chat with him. I think you're really going to enjoy this. If you want to get the full thing, obviously, you can go over to Patreon. $5 a month will get you access to that and the crazy talk I had with Marcos from POD last week. Man, things have been so crazy. My brain is so scrambled. I should probably just get you into this episode and stop blabbering while the cicadas sing here at night. Let's go. Let's talk to Mr. Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Glyn Evans from Mr. Glyn Pickups. What's going on, dude?
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It is a wild time over here right now. I've got multiple product launches from different brands, and we just got into a big retailer, and we have a giant promotion that we're about to launch, and I'm flying out to Nashville in 2 days. So it's a little bit of a wild time right now.
Is that all with Stringjoy?
No, it's this will come out afterwards. There's something coming with Gun Street, which is of course related to Stringjoy. We just got into, and we're able to publicly say that we got into Guitar Center here in the States with Stringjoy. There's a small pedal company that I work with that has a launch, and we're starting the Summer of Stringjoy promotion. So it's like 50-50 Stringjoy. So where we're giving away custom shop telly. So all kinds of stuff going on over here. This sounds like a big commercial right at the top, but it's really just what's going on in my life right now.
Well, also, there's a really cool independent guitar store here in New Zealand that's just stocking Stringjoy. There's been a couple of guys doing it in a small way. But yeah, the Guitar Gallery in both Auckland and Wellington have just got a whole load of stock.
Beautiful. Yeah, so we just started working with some distributors in the area that should increase the availability for everybody. So yeah, hopefully
that's the thing here is I hadn't tried them, and I bought a couple of sets just because I was going to be talking to you, and I felt I should actually know what they're like because otherwise I feel like a complete idiot. So yeah, I've just put a set of the signature ones, 1052s, on one of my guitars yesterday.
Oh, beautiful! Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Interesting. Because I was a guitar repairer for 25 years, so I came across a lot of strings because people would bring you their brand of strings with a guitar, but I'd never come across those. And interesting. They're lively. They really want to play. It's great.
That's the goal, man. Yeah, it's a really weird nichey thing to get into. I still remember like the first time like watching a string being made and going like, well, that's how that's done. Huh. And then you realize like, okay, there's only a couple of parts here, but not too different from pickups. It's like there's unlimited ways to do this somewhat simple task that will have a massive impact on what the end result is. And so when some people say strings are strings, and I'm like, oh, I know why you feel that way. I used to think that too. And it's just not how it is. It's just not the deal. There's so many ways to do it well or to not do it well, or that's not even necessarily the case. It's like some people are looking to optimize certain characteristics in favor of others because everything's a balancing act. So that's just what you're looking for in the design of the thing. So I'm glad you like them. That really makes me happy.
And they felt to me, because my heart is with a Telecaster, although I don't play a telly that often because I'm not in that kind of situation. But it felt to me like it was emphasizing. I'd like to get them on a telly now, because it was.
Mm-hmm.
They felt like they were emphasizing a really nice high end that had that kind of vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and obviously strings are really important to me as a pickup maker, because that's the thing just before the pickup.
Right.
That's the bit that the pickup's listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very important bit.
Yeah. And knowing what things, how things respond to, or how the pickups respond to different combinations of string materials, but not just the materials. It's, the different core sizes and different ways that the wrap's compressed, and like knowing what everybody's doing and how your pickup's going to respond to that is pretty important.
So do you mind me interviewing you about strings rather than the other way?
Sure, we'll flip it eventually, but go ahead.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So obviously the core is the bit that the string is hearing, because that's the ferrous part, yeah? Sure.
Well, yes and no. So that is the main part that it's hearing. So for instance, like phosphor bronze acoustic strings, some people get the impression that they won't work on a magnetic pickup, which they obviously do because of the core. But so things like nickel plated steel, which is the what the signatures are, the steel, it's a nickel plating around steel, so the whole thing really is magnetically active. So it just really depends on the string itself. But yes, the core wire is very, very much the most pronounced part.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear about round cores and hexagonal cores.
Mm-hmm.
What's that about?
So tonally speaking, this is my opinion. Some people share different opinions on this. But tonally speaking, I don't think that it's that crazy different. If you took the exact same size hex and exact same size round and made the string exactly the same way as much as you can, I don't think tonally there would be a huge difference if everything else is equal. But round cores do tend to feel a little more flexible and play a little bit different. Again, some people will argue with me on that. No, round core sounds significantly different. I'm like, I bet if we blindfolded you, probably not. But if we blindfolded you and had you play them, you would probably be able to pick out which ones were round core from playing. They're a little more flexible. They just have a little more give to them. And the playing experience is different. Now, all that said, people tend to manufacture round core and hex core strings slightly differently with different specs. So in that case, if you have a hex core versus round core situation and everything is different, of course they're going to sound different.
Yeah.
But that's less to do with the core type, in my opinion, and more to do with the combination of the parts.
Okay.
Hex core came about because I hesitate to say better, because I do like some round core strings and we make some round core strings, but from a manufacturing perspective, it's 100% better. Like the wrap wire is completely locked into the string for the entire length. Some people have made claims that they have a way to do that on a round core, and I can imagine a few ways which would be highly inefficient, but you could. But if you manufacture a round core properly, it'll stay locked in as well. But a hex naturally wants to grab that wrap wire and lock it in, which is why it was invented in the first place. So it's kind of a smarter way to go, in my opinion. That said, there is like a little less contact area. Like you wouldn't be able to really see it if you cut the string in half, but if you got a microscope or a magnifying glass, you could maybe see where the wrap wire kind of goes over the points of the hex. And that could have some impact. But largely speaking, it's a personal preference. One's not better than the other. It's just, what do you like and what is the goal? And that's why we use round core where we use them, and we use hex where we use them.
But if there is I can see that. I mean, it makes complete engineering sense to have a hexagonal core. But so if there are little gaps in there, I mean, that, in my mind, that's neither positive nor negative. That's like, oh, well, that's something you'd have to look into. And I suppose you can. It almost depends on how you word it. They're acoustic chambers.
Yeah, right.
or is that weight relief? Those two things can be.
Yeah, and of course it'll cause the string to vibrate differently. But like I said, it's not better or worse. It's just, what do you want? What's happening here? There's no, that is like saying, this hammer is better than this sword. Well, what are you trying to do with it? If you're trying to cut somebody in half, you might need a sword. If you're trying to drive a nail, you might need a hammer. It's whatever.
Yeah, that's we'll steer away from that a little bit.
I don't know why my messed up brain went there first. Let's think of two tools. One kills people. That's weird. That was really messed up. Yeah, a little insight into my psyche.
But then there's also that debate on what is a good sound, and then you can go. I mean, there isn't a good or a bad sound. I want my tone to be better. Well, yeah, but what do you mean?
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
better to you? And there's a place for every sound. Every guitar sound. You can have a horrible, thin, weedy sound that'll be perfect in the mix, or or whatever. We're all, and we have different sounds in our heads. And that's a hard one to get out of people's heads and into mine when people are describing what they want.
Yeah, and when you're sitting there by yourself too, you said it perfectly there. Like if it's in the mix, that can mean one thing, but if you're sitting there by yourself, you kind of want the biggest, fullest, gnarliest thing possible. But if you're in the band, it may not make any sense at all for you to take up that much space, and it doesn't sound good in context. Context is everything.
Oh, it's rude. It's very rude to have too much bass, I think, in a guitar sound.
It can be, yeah.
because there's this. As soon as you knock the bass off on your amp, the bass player comes shining through, and I think, and bass players are unfortunately more important than guitarists. Well, it's you have
more
to
foundational.
You have to know your place. Most of the time, every now and again, you get to step forward and go, "Widdly, widdly, look at me, aren't I clever?" But on the whole, you don't. On the whole, you're there bashing out rhythm, and you don't want to be in anyone's way, I think. Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's a fun. So do you gig?
No, I'm a weird person. I've done precisely one gig in my life, and it was my high school battle of the bands. I've never, people give me crap about it, but I'm like, I've never had any interest in being the person on stage for some reason. I love the studio. I love playing in the studio and experimenting in the studio and writing and recording and all that. But I don't, and I love going to see live music, but I don't have a lot of interest in playing live gigs. I just never really have for some reason. I don't know why. I've done it a few times, played parties and little things here and there, but never really went out and did the gigging thing. Though I do like understand it and see what it takes and what's required, and I get all that. It's just not an interest that I have. But I take it, you said you're in a situation where you don't get to play telly very often, so I take that to mean you are in a gigging situation of some sort.
Yeah, and always have been. We do, I don't know how many gigs, probably about every 3 weeks. So, and that's for me the best test bed for pickups.
Interesting.
And
More so than a studio context?
Oh, yeah. Well, in addition to, because you need to know how it's going to be in that situation. You just need to know if it's just going to work. Loud is different. Loud is a different world. And also, we've got a couple of drummers that we will use depending on who's available. So that makes a big difference. And a couple of bass players. So ideally, if I've got a new pickup, I'm going to have that there with a different drummer and different bass player, because it sits really differently.
100%.
And in gigs as well, where and if you do a few gigs with something, because it's different rooms, different situations, and they're not, we're not playing stadiums. We can't control what we're hearing. You're in a pub. It's often, nearly always sounds terrible. Or the room is bad.
Yeah.
And that's a really good situation as well. So it's the real world. This is where people play. So so I find that essential. I think for really knowing what a piece of kit's going to do, and also you're there for our gigs will be 3.5 hours long, and we're doing covers. So I don't choose what I play. I've got to. I choose how I do it, but I have to play other people's music. So I've got to play a huge variety of stuff. So, which is not what I would necessarily do if I was sitting on my own. So I think, again, that's a really, really good trial for any piece of kit. So
I think that what you just said there reminded me of like one of the reasons I don't do the gigs. I remember thinking that way back in the day, I'd, get invited to come play something, and it was like, I don't really want to play other people's music. It's not really. It sounds kind of weird, but I'm like, I realize that I'm very strange. Like I barely even remember. I'm always just playing random stuff, my own stuff. I guess you could call some of it, but I barely play even just like songs that I love. I don't really play them very often, and I realize that's probably kind of weird. But that when you said that, I was like, hey, that is part of the thing. That's part of the reason I don't do that. Yeah. But lack of interest, I guess.
What I've realized, I mean, the reason I stay in this band is mainly because these are my best mates. And it is
100%.
So much fun. And they're just a lovely group of humans. So, I mean, why wouldn't I? But then also what I've realized with what I play is that I don't really care. All I've got to be happy with is my part. And if I'm happy with my part, then I don't really mind what song it was.
Yeah.
And quite often there's bands that you go, oh, really? Do we have to do that? And it turns out you end up with a respect for them, because you go, actually, I hadn't thought of that before. They're really nice chords or whatever, So, yeah, I think I'll probably be in this band till I die.
Yeah, makes sense.
I've been in this band for, I think, 18 years as it is. So
Nice.
Yeah. And it's just that regular getting out and gigging, and that keeps me playing, and learning new stuff all the time.
100%. Well, let's backtrack a little bit, because obviously we've danced around the pickup thing a little bit, but that's your main thing. That's what you do. And you mentioned you did repairs for a long time, and now you're doing pickups. And pickups, unlike most of the things I talk about with people on this podcast, I actually have like some, not like you do, but some experience in making them. We took over Roadhouse pickups, which was a guy named Ken here in Portland, who did a lot of he designed all the stuff for the new Supro guitars, and did a lot of Supro inspired stuff. And he reached out to me because he heard me talking about something on the podcast and asked if we wanted his designs and his knowledge. And so we bought all of his old stuff from him, and he came over and showed us around a little bit. So all that to say is I have slightly more knowledge about this than I would otherwise with him talking about making guitars or amps or pedals or anything. So, but not like you do. I've only done it a handful of times. I handed all that over to Sean, but I'm excited to get into the weeds a little bit on this one. When did you get started making pickups like as your main thing?
Well, as my main thing, as my only thing, it was a COVID thing. It was a change of direction during COVID.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
I had a big repair workshop in the city. Because I live. This is New Zealand. I live near-ish Auckland, and I had a workshop in the centre of Auckland, and because the world temporarily ended, if you can have a temporary end, anyway, I decided that I want to pull the plug on that and just work from home. So pull everything out of there, and I live at the end of the world. The sea's just over there, and it's a rather spectacular place.
Nice.
So I moved everything into a home workshop and went, right, I'm just going to do pickups because I live out in the end of the world. I figured that people are not going to bring their repairs out to me. That what I was actually wrong, but anyhow, I wanted a slight change of direction. I'd been winding pickups since 1990 something, 1997 or 6 or something. And as a repairer, I'd repaired a lot of pickups, especially when I started off, because I went to college to learn guitar repair and guitar making. And then, and then I ended up, that's in the UK where I'm from. And then I ended up teaching at the college for a couple of years, teaching guitar making. But that's where I learned, when I was a student, I learned then how to wind pickups. Just because there was a pickup winder in the corner of the workshop that nobody used. And I just asked Ted, who ran the course.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
Can I use it?
Yeah. Can I play with this cool machine? So then when I started on my own as a repairer, I wasn't very busy and I spent a lot of time experimenting with pickups. Nice. So that was in the 90s. Now then you could get like a 70 Strat pickups were just old pickups. Nobody cared about them. They were worthless, because they break all the time, the 70 Strat ones. There were lots of those to play with, to reverse engineer and to just muck about with. And, you start off going, how much wire can I get on this? And then and then you end up changing that and experimenting and listening. And I bought a little guitar shop. So I was in retail and did the repair stuff, which means a lot of guitars were coming to me through the retail thing and all that. And I could experiment and put pickups in this and that and the other. And I had lots of people in and out the shop who I could say, hey, what do you think what does that sound like to you? So it's a really good place to learn because, of course, there was there was an internet then, but geez, it wasn't, wasn't any use to
really.
No use to man or beast, really, was it? So, and there certainly was no information on pickups. So that was the developing of that intuition that I think you need to be able to do it properly. And with all these great old pickups. So, that's how I started. And then constantly repairing pickups as part of the sort of general guitar repair thing.
That's interesting because I don't obviously fix guitars. I play a lot of them, and I have for a long time, and I've been pretty aggressive on some of them at times. And I can say, it's interesting to hear you talk about how many pickups you repaired. That's not something I hear about as often as I would expect, like my pickup going out. But clearly it does. What do you usually find is wrong? Is it just a short in the winding, or what do you usually find?
Okay, it depends on the pickup. Usually when somebody says, hey, my pickup is stuffed, what I do is ask them lots of questions because it's nearly always the switch.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I've got a Strat, the neck pickup stopped working. It's the neck pickup. Well, is it working in the next position? Is the neck and middle working together? Is your first question, because quite often they are, and you go, well, it's your dirty switch. Squirt it with some squirty and it'll be fine, Yeah. So if it is a pickup, like 70 Strat pickups or 70s Fender pickups are pretty common to stuff up, is when they were lacquer potting them.
Okay.
So instead of wax potting, they were lacquer potting. Now, people have different ideas on the reason they stuff up so often. But the story that I'm going with is that if you take lacquer and you leave it a few decades, it checks, on a finish of a guitar. And if that same process is happening inside the pickup, this wire is pretty fine, so it just takes the coil out with it. So that's very common. And the symptoms for those, interestingly, are not my pickup is dead. It is suddenly it started sounding very, very thin and quite quiet. Now you would assume that it would stop working, but it's sort of held together with capacitance in a kind of weird way, so that you just get this very thin sounding pickup.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's quite common. They're a good bread and butter. Hofner pickups, or Höfner. I was corrected by a German once. Höfner.
I'm gonna still get that wrong. I'm just gonna straight up be honest.
Nah, mate, go Höfner, mate.
It's like I still say Rickenbacker. It's Backer, but I still say Bacher. I'm sorry. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, I say Rickenbacker. That's probably a...
You're doing it right. I'm doing it wrong. But it's too late. It's too ingrained. It'd be like if I had found out it was Leo Fiender, I'd be like, I'm sorry. It's not gonna go. I'm not gonna. I'm stuck. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. But you mentioned the wire being fine. That's one thing I haven't really had an opportunity to bring this up. In reference to pedals, you'll hear a lot of debate, and guitar electronics. You'll hear a lot of debate about these components, these thru-hole components are bigger, so they're better. The tone goes through the big components. It's better. And I'm always from the day I saw how fine a pickup wire was, I was like, yeah, that's really small, even compared to an SMT part in a pedal. It's so fine. It does not matter how big your components are.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily better.
It's really hard to explain to people how thin this stuff is. You know, if you haven't had it in your hand, you can say, oh, it's 0.063 of a millimeter, and you can like, oh, I don't know. Mean? It's like how big's the universe? You can't. Your mind only deals with medium-sized stuff. So I made a little video down the road where I'm looking out to sea, and there's an island which is 1.2 kilometers away, which is probably 3/4 of a mile or a little bit over that. Now, if you imagine a wire stretching for 3/4 of a mile, how fine that would be for it to wind up into something the size of your finger.
Yes.
So that's a Strat pickup.
That's a good way to picture it.
So
that's great. Yeah.
So it's and people do like the thickness of hair and all that, but I mean, yeah, I suppose it is, but I don't know. My hair's pretty insubstantial these days.
I was gonna say my hair is real fine, and some hair is real thick. Pickup wire somewhere in between, I think.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, I suppose you'd be more DiMarzio super distortion wire with your hair, and
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so many guitar players have developed opinions about things, myself included, that they have no experience with, and so they're just like, oh yes, this is the way it is because I heard insert famous guitarist here say it at some point. Thru-hole's better, or tubes are always better, or whatever. I'm like, hey, and I'm a tube amp fan, don't get me wrong, but I've also heard some pretty incredible recordings done on digital gear these days. So you got to be open to experimentation, I think. You
really do. You do. I mean, and then you look at what are we chasing? 58 Les Paul. Yeah, I've never played a 58. Have you ever played a 58 Les Paul?
59.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a 60. It was a 60. I'm getting mixed up. I've gotten to play some pretty ridiculous things that I have no business playing because I'm not good enough to play those things, but I've gotten to some pretty cool opportunities. But all that to say is I still sounded like me. So, wasn't that impressive.
It can be disappointing, can't it? Yeah. I know that one. Yeah. But of course you're going to sound like you. It's just, when I was repairing, I would have a guitar in, and if I did quite a bit of work on it, I'd have a little play and I'd get a feel of what the guitar's like. And when you hand it back to the player, they'll have a little noodle just to make sure it was doing what they wanted, and completely different. When you have a really good player, you go, oh, wow, I knew this was a good guitar. It sounded good for me. But when I hand it to you, it's just something completely different. And yeah, it's all the time. And the instrument makes it makes a difference to a lot of stuff. Like psychologically, when I've played very expensive guitar, I don't play very expensive guitars as well as I play cheaper ones. Because I'm afraid of them.
Interesting.
If you if you've got $5,000 worth of shiny brand new, or you've got, if it's relic, I actually play them better.
Because the damage is already done.
Because you go, I can just do my thing. So, yeah, the guitar makes a difference. It makes a difference to everything. So I think psychologically, the way that is and the way that it feels, the weight and the balance and all that, and that's before we get into, the actual action and all that stuff, neck profiles and things. It makes a massive difference.
Actually, I wasn't quite following you, but then now I totally am, because one of the craziest guitars, and probably the craziest guitar I'll ever play, was at Gibson in Nashville. They have the vault thing you've probably seen.
Wow.
It's literally behind a bookshelf. It's great. They took me in there, and I was taking some stuff, or some photos and some videos and whatever, and I thought they have all these guitars hanging in these display cases inside the vault. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll take some pictures. Like, I'm not going to get to touch these things. And Mark just opens it up and pulls out this Carina Explorer and hands it to me. And I'm like, oh. And I was already like, wow, this is insane. I played it a little bit. Wow, this is crazy. Handed it back to him, hung it up, And I was like, and he had kind of been giving me the story of everything. So, yeah, what's the story of this Carina Explorer? He's like, oh, it's the rarest Gibson probably ever made, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I got to ask. I hate to be this guy, but I got to ask you, how much was that guitar? And he was like, I was like $2.1 million or something. I was like, whoa, 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 woo. So I'm maybe off slightly. Don't quote me on that number, but it was well more than I'm worth, and probably ever will be. So I was like, I'm glad you told me that after I got done playing it, because, I might have passed out or something and then owed Gibson my life. That would have been a little bit unfortunate. So I do understand what you're saying, and probably the most extreme example. I definitely play $400 guitars way better than I would a $2 million guitar. 100%.
I know it's going to sound like a weird question, but was it any good?
It's hard. It's actually hard to like wrap my mind around, because I was so blown away by it. The fact that I was even getting to play it, I wasn't really able to be like real critical of it at all. You know what I mean? I wasn't really thinking that. I was like, oh, it's just like, wow, this is incredible. But it did feel like, a 50s Gibson. It felt like the neck was the big kind of fatter, familiar shape that I remembered and all that. Also, I'm not used to Explorers. So like I had an Explorer shape around here for a while, and I played it a fair bit, but I don't play them typically. So it's hard for me to be real critical. I know that I quite enjoyed it, so it must have been at least decent.
And you've got and there's a story. Yeah. What did they make? 92 of them or something? They don't even know how many they made.
I think it might be less than that. It was something insane. I can't remember the full details. I'd have to look it up, but it was a wild experience for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm
definitely played worse on it for sure.
I'm a big Flying V fan. You see, I really like Vs.
I really want one. I don't have one.
Yeah. Well, I've got an Epiphone, like the 58 reissue type, and that's been really good. I didn't spend enough time with one to actually feel comfortable before, and now, I mean, that's what I take out to gigs all the time now.
That is quite a bit different than the Telecaster that you were saying your heart kind of lies with the Tele, but you're playing a V.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take different guitars out depending on what I'm testing. Like I've been testing some Strat pickups recently, so I'll be taking them to gigs, which is obviously very different. And what I will usually do is the first set, I'll play the experimental pickups for the first set. And then if I'm thinking I need to tweak them, I'll just swap to a more familiar guitar. But quite often I'll just play them all night, because it's like, oh, actually, no, maybe these are okay. So so it chops and changes a lot, but I just quite like the V, and I think for most of my life I felt I needed to be really flash to have a V. But Joe Bonamassa, although Joe Bonamassa is flash, but him being an older gentleman playing a V and not being a total shredder all the time, I kind of think, he's made it okay now. And as you get older, you care less about what people think.
I think I might have started out slightly old. I've always just been like, I want this. Like, that's weird. Like, I'm gonna do this. It's sometimes good, sometimes bad. Depending on how.
As long as you're happy, as long as you're comfortable doing it. And the V is great. You can get right to the high end, and people say you can't really play them sitting down, but I've got other guitars I can.
I don't really play sitting down, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, me neither, not much.
Yeah, I'm mostly standing. Yeah, I'm standing right now. Yeah,
we are really rock and roll. Obviously, both of us.
Clearly. I mean, that goes without saying. Just listen to our voices. We're like it, man.
Listen to you. You sound rock and roll.
You think so?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't know. The UK, you got that whole UK vibe rock and roll thing going on. Like, I don't know. That's a thing too.
Is it? I don't know.
Some of the biggest bands in the world from the UK.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I've been in New Zealand for, I don't know, 20 years.
I hear it kind of the accent kind of it's definitely a blend.
Yeah.
You've got both going in there. My wife has her phone set to an Australian accent for some reason for her directions. She just thinks it's more entertaining than the American Surrey, which she's not entirely wrong about. But I make the mistake once in a while of calling it a Kiwi, even though it's not. And she's quick to correct me.
Right out.
How did you find yourself in New Zealand?
I had a guitar shop in the UK and I decided to sell it, which was in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was I'd been in a guitar shop for 10 years. And it's quite a long time to be in, to be doing that. And but by shop I mean store. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the internet was happening, and I you can see how it was working. And it started off with just books. You know, people would buy books, and people weren't trusting to pay for things online. And then as that started changing, I realised I needed to put a lot of effort in to get into this newfangled nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't be bothered. Right at the time, I went, nah, I can see what's happening, and I can see I've got to be in it, and nah. So I got out. So I sold up. Spent 2 years busking around Europe playing the musical saw. And then...
Wait, the musical saw?
Musical saw, yeah.
I don't know. What is that a term? I'm not familiar with what that even is.
Yeah, it's a saw, you know, like a rip saw.
It's literally a saw?
Yeah, and you play it with a bow.
I thought you were pulling my leg, but I can see that you're not.
No. It was, yeah.
You spent 2 years playing the musical saw.
Yeah.
You are an interesting man. Yeah. We're gonna have to get into that.
It is the perfect busking tool because it's novel and entertaining. It's fairly loud. It's portable, and nobody messes with you on the streets.
Yeah, you're carrying a saw. It's a good point.
30-inch long, sharpened steel blade. You know, we're back to your sword thing at the beginning.
I see why you wanted to go away from the sword talk. This was a little too close to home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Where in the world would I want to live? And I traveled quite a lot when I was younger, and I'd been to New Zealand and quite a lot of other places, and I really liked New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. I did all the immigrations thing, and here I am, and I'm a citizen, and I'm not going anywhere. And you can't make me.
I won't try.
But you know, yeah, it's a great place, and where I live, the climate's really good. It doesn't get too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter, and yeah, it's really good.
So you made your way to New Zealand. You started immediately with the repair business, or what did you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you couldn't stay away from the guitars for too long. Only a couple of years.
Yeah. No, guitars are really cool. They really are. They're great things.
They really are. I love them.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
Yeah. And I haven't. That's never changed. I've never thought, oh no, guitars, because repairers do. Repairers that I know who will tell you that they're sick of guitars. But nah, they're great.
I kind of get it. Like, I understand. You do something long enough. I've made this analogy before. It's like, hey, you might be really into chocolate or pizza or whatever, but if you eat it for every single meal, eventually you'll be like, this is still really good, but I kind of want a sausage, or I kind of want, a cake or a piece of fruit or something just to mix it up. But the thing about guitars is, especially now, there's such a wide variety within that seemingly narrow, space, like guitar. But it's like, man, you got Strandbergs, you got 7 strings, you got 8 strings, you got tenors, you got baritone 6 strings, you got, everything under the sun. It's always exciting in my opinion, and you've seen more than I have. So it obviously has kept your interest over the years.
And then there's all the old stuff that's still around. Mm-hmm. And with the thing with repairing is you keep learning. People keep bringing you things that you've never seen before. You know, I mean, the principles are the same, but yeah, there's so much cool stuff there, you know. And even with pickups, I mean, pickups, you'd think, well, it's a pretty small world. You make a single coil, you make a humbucker, and you're done. But I mean, it's a massive subject.
Yes.
You know, I make 3 or 4 Strat pickups and 3 or 4 Tele pickups, and I don't know how many humbuckers, 4 or 5 different humbucker sets, and then P90s and humbucker size P90s. Oh, and there's a Filtertron and Jazzmaster, and then how far are you going to go on with that? There's lipstick, there's other stuff, and you know, there's so many different kinds.
Well, then you start putting, humbuckers into Jazzmasters, or you redo that. The thing that blew me away, that Ken showed me, was he had 2 different pickups, and I had these pickups in my guitar. They sounded completely different, like as different as they could sound without being a humbucker. They're both single coils, without being a completely different architecture. They sounded so insanely different. And he said, "Do you want to see the difference in those pickups?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's see it." And so he made some like in front of me. And he's like, "Here's the difference." And it was just where he put the magnets. The turns were the same. The casing was the same. Everything was the same, but he put the magnets in a different location, transformed it sonically. No one would tell you that those things sounded the same as each other. It was wild to me learning that the magnetic field had such a big impact. And when you think about it, well, of course it does. It's changing the position. It's sensing things. Of course, it changes the sound. But it was a complete revelation to me. I had no idea that it could be that simple. And then it's like, whoa, open the floodgates for possibilities. If you can just move the magnets around, imagine all the other variables. That's crazy.
Well, the classic example of that is a Jazzmaster and a P90, because the coils are pretty much the same. They're the same squishy wide coil on a P90 and Jazzmaster, but a Jazzmaster's got the magnets inside the coil, and a P90's got these 2 magnets outside the coil with steel in the coil. Very, very different beasties.
Very different. Yeah, very different.
It's really cool. And then manipulating that magnetic field, moving that around in different. Was one that I make for doom metal called the Drag.
Oh, you have my interest.
Yeah. It's called the Drag, which is dragon in Welsh. I'm from Wales. And the bridge pickup, it's a humbucker, but see, I'm a big Sabbath fan. Yeah, so I want that Iommi thing in the mids.
Yeah.
So it's got an adjustable pole piece side and a blade side. It's a big fat blade. Now that blade is the side that's away from the bridge. Now the blade is way more efficient magnetically than the poles. So you're getting much more. That's doing all the heavy lifting, and it's the side that is furthest from the bridge. So you're getting less of the aggressive ping. So you're pushing more towards that middle area where you're going to get more mids. And it's wound. It's not. People go, it's a low power pick. It's not low power because it's got a lot of magnetism. It's got less winding.
People get that confused.
Yeah, so sure. I've kind of wound it to what I see as the sweet spot for pushing that mid. And then I've put a big fat Alnico 6 under it. So it's like a double size magnet post Alnico 6, which has similar properties to Alnico 5, but a little bit more oomph and more mids. Again, did I mention the mids?
Do you like mids?
With this, well, that's what this is about. And I didn't want, and I had to hit that spot of power where, into a fuzz, it doesn't turn into a fizz.
Yes,
because that's a fine line to walk to make it really work in a fuzz. So that put a lot of work into that one, and then the neck pickup that matches it is a humbucker size P90.
Oh, interesting.
But again, see that now that's not a pickup that the Doom people are not necessarily going to go, oh, I need a neck pickup. But so this one's I've gone all out for clarity. So it's a humbucker size P90 and the magnets are ceramic. So they're going to have a drier sound. So I almost want to avoid the mids on that because I need the neck pickup to have some clarity.
Yeah, 100%.
not some clarity. It needs to be very clear. Again, when you're using way too much fuzz, it's got to be.
Well, especially
there.
if it's for doom metal, you're talking about 90% down tuned, at least down to D minimum. Usually,
Yeah.
Very rarely are we playing an E standard. So, the clarity on the neck, especially, which is, some people claim that necks are always muddy, and I'm just like, wow, you haven't played very many guitars, but I understand why you think that. But yeah, maintaining that clarity there, that sounds like a really fun combination.
Yeah.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, and interestingly, that's my biggest selling pickup in the US. Yeah.
That's not too surprising. That genre has blown up, especially in the last 7 years or so. Really, really exploded. Everyone's trying to be Sleep. Which I can't blame them for. I totally understand.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblintsaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Hey, this is Aaron from No Simple Road. I'm inviting you to come hang out with Apple, Mel, and I as we talk with the musicians, artists, chefs, authors, and beyond from the world that turns us on. We're reaching into the improvisational music scene, the psychedelic culture, the festival world, and getting to know what makes the people tick that create those scenes. Come join us on the long, strange trip over at No Simple Road.
Sleep.
So
yeah.
is that like a genre that you mentioned? Sabbath, obviously we all love Sabbath, but is that a genre that you pay a lot of attention to and love, or where does your musical taste kind of lie?
I to my shame, I only recently, like a year and a half ago, discovered Doom, and I don't know how it had passed me by. It's very odd, but yeah, I've in that period, I listened. I've been getting really into it. Sleep, because I do most of my listening in the car when I'm driving to band practice and stuff. Unfortunately, Sleep are quite problematic for that because I use Siri to say, Siri, play. And you can't ask it to play Sleep because she immediately does just that. She just shuts off.
Right.
Oh.
That's not what I meant.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we'll go with High on Fire, I guess. That'll.
Yeah. So anyway, and there's a lot of really cool Doom bands here. Beast Wars. Do you know Beast Wars?
I don't know Beast Wars.
You need to do some listening today.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's various Doom bands everywhere, I suppose. But so
Paul Bearer just came out with a new record. I saw that, so you guys aren't familiar. We're just gonna name drop bands. That works for me. That's super cool. Yeah. So previous to that, obviously you got really into that recently. You mentioned Sabbath, but when you were growing up, when you were first getting into all this stuff, what ignited the love of the rock and roll and the guitars? And do you remember that moment?
Malcolm Young.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
and the first 4 seconds of the intro to Jailbreak.
Mm-hmm.
That sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That absolutely, when I was about 16, and I must have heard that at just the right point, and it just completely changed my direction, or actually gave me a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then from that, off you go in all sorts of ways. I mean, I got really into Zappa for a while. I'm not sure if that does you any good, really. But it makes you think.
It makes you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely
Yeah.
makes you think.
Yeah. But it does mess up your listening to other things.
Yeah, because it takes Zappa's not. What's the way to say this? Zappa is not, in my opinion, something that most people can casually listen to. You kind of have to analyze it a little bit to figure out what's going on, and you have to spend a lot of time with it. And admittedly, I haven't spent the time required to fully grasp the depths of Zappa. So maybe I need to dive into that one day to have a better understanding of things.
You see, as somebody when I was in my late teens, as you know, an immature lad in his late teens, all the naughty subject matter was my entry to it. You know?
Of course, yeah, of course,
because that's fun and makes you giggle. And then of course you end up musically it starts sounding more. It initially sounds strange, and then it starts sounding more and more normal, and then you get really used to it, and then everything else sounds really strange. Mm-hmm. So you know, and you listen to anything on the radio then, and it sounds like a nursery rhyme.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So yeah. So, but then I think looking back, yes, I'm really glad I had a massive Zappa phase, but like I said, I don't know if it does you any good.
Yeah, it definitely is up for debate in some circles. I think one could say. So when you heard AC/DC when you were 16, and that like set you off, and you mentioned, I'm having fun like going through your story in the most convoluted way possible, but you mentioned the repair shop, not the repair shop, the guitar shop. How did you come to own a guitar shop, though? That isn't something that people just wake up and do either.
Well, there happened to be one that was really run down. I was in Leeds in Yorkshire, so in the north of England now, mm-hmm. And it was really run down. And the guy who I got to know, because it was kind of local to me, had sort of had enough, and so I got it really cheap, but there was nothing in it, or very little in it. So I just put all my guitars that I owned at the time in there and sold them, and you just slowly build it up. It wasn't a huge. Yeah, it wasn't like I invested loads and there was lots and lots of stock initially. It was it just slowly built, and it's really cool. It's great. You meet a huge amount of people. You know, I mean, some of them totally bonkers, but most of them really cool.
They're all a little bonkers, and in some way.
And it's there's funny stuff happens in guitar shops. It's a really humorous environment. And I always tried to make it interesting. Like we had a full length mirror with leopard skin framed full length mirror, so people can try a guitar on.
Yeah, 100%. You want to see what it looks like?
Yeah,
of course you do.
Yeah. So it was kind of it was like a hangout place as well as obviously trying to sell these things. Mm-hmm. But it's really good, and it's great for learning about guitars, because all the guitars that you're not necessarily interested in, you've got to know stuff about them. Mm-hmm. So I've never really been that into acoustics.
Either, weirdly enough, but that's slowly. It's slowly changing. It's slowly changing for me. I just realized what's right over my shoulder. But yeah, I never had my dad's really into acoustics, and acoustic guitar is what set me down this path. But I always wanted to play loud, distorted guitars, always. Before I ever picked up a guitar, I knew that's what I wanted to do with it, was play weird noise. That's just what I want to do.
Because they're cool. Yeah.
It's never changed. There's some things that you grow up and you grow out of and you don't have interest in anymore, or you don't care about it as much as you used to. You've moved on to other things. That's never changed. I've always loved huge distorted guitars, and I don't think that's ever going to change at this point.
No.
I really don't. I think it's there.
No, same with me. Same with me. I mean, I'm a few years older than you, obviously, and yeah, no, I've still got that. I've still got it, mate. Yeah. Hey, I've just noticed. So you noticed behind me, it's daylight. We started off; it was dark.
Yeah, I didn't do the math there. You were getting up quite early for this, weren't you?
Yeah, I got up at 5. Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm capable of doing that anymore.
I've become that bloke. You know, the one.
Interesting.
I've become that. Best hours of the day. You get. So I get up early and do a bit of work before everyone else wakes up, and yeah, I've just become him. I never thought I would.
I wonder if that'll happen. I wonder if that just is a switch that flips at some point, because I've been a night owl my whole life, and even it doesn't really matter what time of the day I wake up. If I wake up kind of earlier or if I wake up later, it always takes me an hour to wake up, to actually wake up. And we're just like, so people are like, it's the best time of the day. You can get so much done. I'm like, I'm still going to be out of commission for an hour after I wake up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because I'm a weak boy. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I just get up and I run at full speed within about a minute.
My wife's the same way. She wakes up, she's immediately awake. Me and my sister are both just takes a long time to get that engine started for some reason. Once it's started, it's really started, but it takes a long time to get going. Yeah. Well, man, let's see. We're knocking on the door of an hour, and I do have the classic questions I like to wrap this up on. But before I do that, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor, shout out anybody you want to shout out, plug anything you want to plug, say anything you want to say. The floor is yours, good sir.
Oh, crikey. Hey, look, May is New Zealand Music Month, right? Every year we have a month where New Zealand music gets promoted. Mm-hmm. So go and check out some Kiwi bands in May.
All right. Cool.
There you go.
I like that.
So we've got from Doom right through to, I don't know, Crowded House on the other end. There's a lot of great music come out in New Zealand and still is. So
cool.
There you go. Alien Weaponry. Have a listen to them. They might work for you, Blake. Do you know?
I like the name. The name sounds great.
Have a listen to Alien Weaponry. A lot of their songs are not in English. They're in Te Reo Maori. So
cool. That is cool.
Yeah, and they're a cool metal band. And I do a signature pickup for them. There you go.
Hey,
I can
nice.
promote myself as well.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for taking the time, and thanks for all that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Let's get into these last few questions here. First, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
TU2.
The TU2, the most popular answer. It's always the TU2 or TU3.
Okay, I'm trying to think what's on my board, and the only Boss pedal is a TU2. I'm nothing against Boss pedals. I tend to try and play stuff. I've often got a lot of New Zealand-made pedals on my board. Right now, I've stripped it down to what I think is bare minimum, which is 4 overdrives, a phaser, and a fuzz.
I like that. 4 overdrives. I like your style.
Although actually the phaser is a Boss phaser. It's the PU2, I think it is.
PU.
It's a green phaser with a switch that'll go from like phase 90 to the aliens have landed, sort of. And that's actually I took the phase 90 off the board in favour of that one. So.
All right,
that's a Boss pedal. I call that my favourite Boss pedal that isn't a tuner.
That works. Yeah. I love Boss, and it's always hard for me to pin down. Like I've been asked that question a few times, and it always changes. I don't know which one it is right now.
Yeah, good that it does change.
Probably DD3 right now. I really like the DD3,
really?
DD2. Yeah. It's crispy. It's like got I usually go with these really dark analog delays or tape delays or things like that. But the DD3 like has this really that rhythmic pattern thing that it does. Okay. That's really bright and crisp. It's so different than what I normally lean into, and I'm really enjoying that right now.
Because I had a delay. I had a Red Witch, another good Kiwi brand, another good Kiwi Red Witch pedals, which is the Binary Star, and that was a great delay. But I've kind of gone away from delay a little bit now.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, I like to end the note in the same way that I start it. I like to have a stop. Boom. So yeah, so I've kind of gone away from that.
I feel that way when I hit the wrong note. I'm like, man, I wish it would stop. I wish it would.
Yeah.
Please stop. Stop what you're doing right now. All right. Final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, I had my gallbladder stuff up and I don't digest fats anymore. So I actually had to stop pizza.
You're not the first person that's told me that exact story.
So mine happened on a long haul flight. So anyway.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I ended up having to get out the plane in Saigon and have it removed. So anyway, that was a long story, but pepperoni,
just a good old pepperoni pizza. You can't go wrong. No. It's always satisfying. It always hits the spot.
What about you?
It's tough. I really like Italian wood-fired style pizzas. There's a really good one in my town called Mi Familia. It's really great. I bounce around a little bit with what I like there. I have a soft spot, although I don't want it all the time. I definitely don't want this all the time, for a New England clam pie. I don't know if you've ever had that before, but you don't really go for that when you're wanting pizza. You go for that when you're wanting the most hearty bowl of clam chowder you've ever had, because it scratches more of a clam chowder itch, like a clam chowder bread bowl, than an actual pizza. But it's served on a pizza, and it looks like a pizza. But when you bite it, it's like, this feels like clam chowder, because it's white sauce and all that kind of thing. That's really fun sometimes. But I test places with cheese. If I'm looking to see what they're made of, I'll try just a cheese slice and see if they can pull that off nicely. Then the rest of the pizzas are going to be good too. And sometimes a perfectly executed cheese slice or a pepperoni, and it's just all balanced just right, sometimes that's all you really need. You can all the toppings in the world aren't necessarily going to make it better. You just need it to be nice and balanced and crisp. So a good New York style, New Haven style.
So the just cheese thing is you're plugging straight into the amp there, aren't you, really?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Maybe if you put pepperoni, that'd be like using one overdrive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then too many toppings, then you've got two delays and too much reverb, and then
which I like that too. So time and place, I suppose. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Maybe we'll slide over to Patreon and see what kind of shenanigans we can get into over there. Does that work for you?
Sure.
All right. Cool. All right, everybody. For Glyn, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is a great Patreon. It really is. We get into some really, really cool stuff. I know I say that every time, but the reality is, once the main episode's done, we pause. We're just getting warmed up. We're just starting to feel it. We're just getting in the groove. And that's when the magic really happens. And that's when you can magically support this show and help it keep going. For $5 a month, you get access to all the bonus episodes, including the ad-free feed, which you can also access by itself for $3 if you don't like ads. I totally get it. And most of those episodes do not contain cicadas. The Southerners are telling me that the 13th and 17th year broods are crossing over this year. There's going to be a lot of cicadas down south this summer. I'm from Oregon. I know what that means, only because people have told me. So if you want to hear some creepy bug stuff, you should Google that, because cicadas are weird, and you're hearing some of them right now. Anyway, that's not the point. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for being here week after week. It means the world to me. It's hugely appreciated. Thank you to everybody so much. And please make sure you check out Glyn's work. That is obviously linked in the show description and all that good stuff. Thank you all so much. I'm going to go back to bed because it's very late here. And listen to these bugs. It's just a nice chorus singing me to sleep. All right, bye everybody. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Well, hey friends, my name is Zach Lupetin. You may know me from the band Dust Bowl Revival, but I also host a music discovery podcast called The Show on the Road. For the last 5 seasons, I've been able to dive deep and have intimate chats with folks like the Lumineers, Ani DeFranco, Wolfpack, Keb Mo, Lake Street Dive, Bela Fleck, and more. So guess what? After 150 conversations with some of my favorite songwriters from around the world, we are bringing brand new episodes to the Osiris Network. New interviews and intimate acoustic performances will be coming at you this summer. And which episodes are coming next, you ask?
I am Zach Goody, the lead singer for the band Smash Mouth.
Our band is called Milky Chance. We are based in Berlin.
My name is David Shaw. I sing and write songs with my band, The Revivalists.
Trust me, these conversations go some wild places. So subscribe to The Show on the Road on Osiris, and we'll see you soon.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time, a secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses, all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.